And welcome back, everyone, to the Right Path podcast, where being an author, an actual author, still matters. This is the podcast that is for authors. It's about authors. It's done by an author. It's where we share our journeys. It's where we explore our creativity, and it's where we examine the why behind it all. Folks, our guest today. I have been blessed to have this gentleman on my programs before, but the first time on this one, we have a special announcement about a new book coming up. So please welcome to the show New York State Senate funded dyslexia researcher and author of the new book, Writing to Read, a proven dyslexia method for turning struggling writers into confident readers at home or in the classroom. Please welcome Russell Van Brocklen. Russell, how you doing today?
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. We've had some great episodes between the two of us, and you are making the rounds. I mean, you are busy.
Yeah, I've been in the top five on Podmatch for the past 6 months where we've met. I've been number one twice, and it's been a wild ride. You're my 198th podcast.
Oh, man, I was hoping to be the 200th, but that's all right. You know what?
Yeah,
I'll take 198.
almost there, but that was from April, and I'm now doing typically about 1 to 2 podcasts a day now.
Nice. All right. But I'm the only guy to have you on three separate shows, right?
Right, that's the only
Okay.
one.
All right. As long as I got a little claim to fame in this mess, I'll take it. That sounds good. All right, Russell, you and I always have a fantastic conversation. I've always been just enthralled with the work that you do. And to be honest, really nobody else is out there doing it and talking about it the way you are.
Oh, what we're doing is absolutely unique. Let me just show everybody what we're doing.
Hmm?
This is the top book in my field called Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shewitz from Yale. And that's dyslexia. Do you see how the back part of your brain has that massive neural activity?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But the back of my brain has next to nothing.
Hmm.
But the front part of my brain's about 2.5 times overactive.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you're looking at solving this, everybody has it wrong. The science is right there. Why are we trying to force the back part of the dyslexic brain to become more active when that's the dyslexic's weak spot? That never made any sense to me. I looked at the front part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive, and I said, why don't we use that? Why don't we use the dyslexic strengths instead of their weakness? Why don't we give Michael Jordan in his prime a basketball instead of a hockey stick? All right. That
Right.
was just always my idea. See, when you look at the front part of the brain, deals with two things. It's called word analysis followed by articulation. And people ask me, well, how did you get involved in this? And does this actually work? And I said, well, as you found out from my title, I'm a New York State Senate funded dyslexia researcher. I'll give you a little hint. They don't fund dyslexia research. So my journey there, I think you might find kind of interesting. It all started back in the late 90s when I wanted to know how laws work, not some class I wanted to know. So I had this weird idea of going to the New York State Assembly internship. The reason it was weird is because when I show up, I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing ability. And the director of the program freaked out because how it worked back then is for most of the assembly situations, you had the elected official, the chief of staff, who was most likely in the intern the year or two before, and then the intern, and that's all you had to run the office for most of the session. You have to take calls, write things down, take notes, file things, do memos, and I can't read or write. So the director freaked out, went up to the speaker's office, and they said, you are not going to get rid of this kid because he's dyslexic. Figure it out. So they got a committee together and with their senior people, and they came up with this really crazy idea. They physically removed me from the legislative office building and moved me to the Capitol. And that's a big deal because this excluded me from being around my peers, which was a huge part of the internship. I never saw them. So in the Capitol, they placed me in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office that ran the assembly day to day. And I walked in and I could see immediately what happened. There were three administrative assistants that could help me with my horrific writing, but they had no clue what to do with an undergrad. They did it with grad students. So it's a real, that's what they treated me like. Went great. I went and I did the academic portion. I gave an hours long presentation instead of a paper. They recommended 15 credits of A minus. Go back to the political science department of the State University of New York at Buffalo. And in that political science department, they look at these insane accommodations and we don't like them, so we're lowering your grade. Guess what they lowered it to?
I, I have no idea.
An F. They flunked me
Whoa.
for 15 credits.
I was thinking like B or something.
No, they just flunked me.
What in the world?
Well, they didn't like the accommodations the state government came up with.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
Okay.
at that point, I just said, just remember where I came from. I was in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office that ran the assembly day to day. I was offered lobbying positions. I was offered tracks to going into senior positions in the state because I could just pick up the phone and talk to people that I've worked with for the last 5 months, and we know and liked each other, which was incredibly valuable in politics.
Yeah.
I said, I'm solving this. So I went to my professors and I said, where can I go to grad school to force myself to learn to read and write so I can show other dyslexics? They said, well, if you like politics, it's easy. Law school. So I went to law school with a first grade reading and writing ability, where you read and write more than anybody. So I go in.
Wow.
It's my contract is coming up, and I force myself to learn to start to read. Just sheer white knuckling it. I go in. It's my second day in contracts. I'm called on. I didn't respond as a student who the professor, because nobody knows anything the first week. They will keep asking you questions that you don't know to embarrass you publicly until you eventually adopt. It's called the Socratic method. I didn't respond as a student. I responded as his equal. Be very clear on this. I responded as his equal. He couldn't beat me. I couldn't beat him. We both knew where each of us were going, multiple moves ahead. Everything organized for the first time in my life. After 15 minutes, he said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. I got to move on to the next case for the interest of time. I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I go back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research program, which they don't do. So they send me over to the New York State Education Department. I go in and I say, okay, this is what we're looking for. Because I'm coming from the majority leader's office of the Senate, they have to take me very seriously. So they said, well, where's this research out of? I said, Buffalo. They said, well, we want a New York State distinguished professor in psychology to approve this and say there's something good here. I said, okay. So they said, without that, you're done. So I go out to Buffalo. I said, okay, this can't be that hard. There's two of that rank in Western New York, the biggest university center, the biggest college, and the two biggest departments, and there's two. It just so happened the professor who gave me the evaluation a few years before is one of those distinguished professors. She literally founded the psychology department at Buffalo State because at the time she couldn't work at the center because her husband worked there.
Oh,
So
geez.
she became one of the nation's most prolific psychologists. Her name is Dr. Holichka. So she evaluated me over 20 hours over 3 days, the smartest professor I've ever seen. And remember, she has the data from doing this a few years before. And then she said, I have a first grade reading and writing level that I can jump up writing to the 70th percentile of undergrad students, approximately, and back down again. She wrote a 5 pages. How? Well, I kind of shocked the education department with that little thing. So then I have to connect it to a current professor. That was their way of getting rid of me again. There's only one professor I could have went to. His name was Dr. James Collins. He wrote a book called Strategies for Struggling Writers. And he had $1.5 million grant from the U.S. Education Department to do this. I was told it was going to take years to get his approval. There's a pattern here I want you to start seeing. It took me less than 2 weeks. All right. First
Okay.
of all, I dominate law school my first time I'm called at. Now I go through and do this, which takes years in less than 2 weeks. Dyslectics, I found out later, own law school because it deals with essentially the front part of the brain here, where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. So I go ahead, I get his approval. Then I enter a university-wide competition. I get $15,000. We used that to test it out on the first two students. The first one went, she was at the, just so everybody knows, I'm dealing with people like me. That's who I wanted to help initially. Highly motivated, highly intelligent high school juniors and seniors. So, in other words, they weren't dyslexic, they'd be fighting to be valedictorian. First student, her name was Michaela. Michaela was writing at the 8th grade level. She got a 0 percentile on the GRE on the pre-test, about the 50th percentile on the post-test. Okay.
Okay.
Average of entering grad students from 8th grade to average of entering grad students in a couple of months. Next student's name was Adam. He was much worse, but much more intelligent. Okay. He failed the New York State Regents with a 47 and a 52. So halfway through the program, he retook the test. He scored a 72. Then he scored at the end in the 70th percentile.
Wow.
He went on to college, English 101 and 102. He got B's in both. Okay. So then we went into a public school, the Averill Park Central School District, right outside of Albany, New York, where I graduated from high school. And we did, the state funded us for a couple of years. It was 11 students. They all went on to college. They all graduated. GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Plus New York State less than $900 per student. We were literally, compared to the best dyslexic college at the time, Landmark College, we were literally 3 times more effective for less than 1% of the cost. And that's how I got started in this madhouse.
Oh my God. I was going to say, every time I hear your stories, there's something else I pick up in them. It just makes me chuckle. You've been battling against the odds since moment one.
Oh, absolutely. This was, uh, just so you know, when I presented, I went down and I was cocky. I walked in, we presented in New York City, the New York City branch of the International Dyslexia Association. And I'm like, I just dominated this. It's done. I'm all set. I was wrong. The professors came to me and they said, you had a couple of kids scored in the 70th percentile of entering grad students from middle school level. We don't care. We want the craft of research. It's like, what the heck's the craft of research? It's a book that came out in 1995 by the University of Chicago to help their PhD students write their doctoral dissertations. And I
Okay.
was like, it sold 1 million copies, over 1 million copies since then. I said, you want me to teach dyslexic kids to do grad level stuff? It's context, get everybody on the same page, a problem statement that they can do that's unique. The problem needs to be solved in original solution. And they said, yes. Then I went and I spoke to, I gave that presentation to the teachers and they raised their hand and says, does this work for normal kids? And I said, no. And they said, come back when it does. 8 years later, I come back.
Oh my gosh. This, I wanted to ask you this before.
Sure.
The fact that you have been like living this battle and that you
Mm-hmm.
have fought this as hard as you have, you suppose that adds to why you're so incredibly successful connecting with these kids and getting them to kind of like buy into the program?
Oh, I'm successful with the kids because first thing I'll do is this happens all the time. I'll get on a call with the family and the parents literally force the kid to speak to me. And they've been trying everything. They're like, I'm not talking to you. I said, I understand. I was you. Yeah, prove it. And then I tell them kind of like part of the story I just told you. And I said, let me prove it. I'm going to tell you things about yourself that nobody else knows. And they get this skeptical look. And I'll say, what's your speciality? What's your area of extreme interest and ability? And they'll tell me. And then I'll say, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you what's going on in your head. And they're like, prove it. I'm like, okay. In your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed? Key question, but with little to no organization. And I get this look like, how did you know? Okay. And I'm like, all right, well, I know because I'm like you. Now, The next question, this is to see if you're really dyslexic. I said, you want to write something on your speciality, fingers, keyboard, fingers, keyboard. And I said, when you have the idea in here, you take the fingers, put it on your keyboard, and then the idea flies out of your head, leaving you with an empty brain. And for the kids who are really dyslexic, they're like, how did you know? I said, gee, because I went through this when I was your age, but I'm worse than you. Prove it. Then I show them the neuropsych eval. Okay. And then I said, if I really have to, and I only do this for a very small subset of kids, these are incredibly dyslexic students who happen to normally be around an 80 to 85 GPA, maybe a little higher. Nobody notices because if you have an 83 GPA, the teacher's like, okay, yeah, you're not doing fantastic, but you're not doing bad either. And I'll tell them, I know your secret. And this is where they tend to freak. They want their parents out of the room. They don't want them to know. And what I tell them is it started somewhere in elementary school, probably between second and fourth grade. All right. And what happened is you were told you were going to be held back if you couldn't do some academic task. You were going to lose your friends. This is especially devastating for girls. All right. And I said, so what happened is nobody could help you. You became immensely frustrated to the point of it being clinically dangerous. And then the answer presented itself and you barely passed and you moved on. And that has happened to you so many times that now in high school, wherever they are, it's just second nature. They start crying. It's an emotional release. They never want their parents to know. Because when I said the amount of pressure they put on themselves is clinically dangerous, I mean it's severely clinically dangerous. And then the answer presents itself and they move on. And they ask, well, how do you know? I said, don't you think I haven't already been there myself? And then we discuss their speciality. And I say, here's how we can apply this. We're doing writing to read. We're not doing reading because that's just not the best way. Because if you can write it, you can read it. And that's how I get that's my engagement with the kids.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I knew there was something there. Never had a chance to get into that with you before, but that's got to be just incredibly powerful for you,
Oh,
for them, and for the program.
oh yeah. So here's what here's the model. What I tell parents is I said, and let me just give you what that is if you ever want to have any chance of your kid getting past dyslexia. The first thing is we have to focus on their speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. So let me give you an example. This case is her name is Casey. I never saw this before, Casey. I will never see this again. This was a one off exception, but it illustrates how powerful the speciality needs to be. So Casey was 10 years old at the end of fifth grade. She turned 11 over the summertime. She was reading and writing at the second grade level, but she insisted on doing reading first. So she liked Theodore Roosevelt. So I assigned her this little book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages of it. This is for 10th grade, this first year college level, depending on who you ask. Won the Pulitzer. So Casey went up to her room, shut the door for 3 hours a night for 6 months, most of the days during the summertime, going through a simple process that I gave her. At the end of that time, you could flip to this random page, point to that word, and she would tell you the dictionary definition verbatim. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
My goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, her mom wanted to know, is that just for books she likes? What about something she hates? This is my most popular book, Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination. You flip through it, it's 1,000 pages. This is for 17-year-olds. You go to Disneyland or Disney World, there's the Disney magic is two universal themes. One, anybody can find in 5 minutes. The second one, I've never had a parent find. Takes my kids 1 to 3 years to find it. Yes, 1 to 3 years. Top dyslexic schools take 4 to 5 years to solve the problem. They're doing it part time, and if they can read that book, they're reading like 17-year-olds. Parents are fine with it. Casey did it in 3 months. And I said, Casey, here's the punchline. When you're going from something you really love to something you absolutely hate, how much does that affect your motivation? Most motivated kid I've ever worked with, it's down 50%. Most dyslexics and ADD and ADHD kids will tell me it's down 75 to 90. You step outside of their speciality, it drops like a rock, 75, 90%. So what do we do in school? Do we work with the kid's speciality? No, we make them well-rounded. So you are almost always outside their speciality, so they don't want to do anything. And teachers can't figure out why. That's why. So only for the intervention period do we have to be doing this. Next, you ask a dyslexic. We get them a book and an audio book in their speciality. That's key. Then we ask the dyslexic or ADD or ADH kid. In your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So here's the key. We have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Again, we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So let me give you an example about how this works. I want you to imagine you're back in high school and the
Yeesh.
teacher tells you, yeah, I know. It's like, not me, man.
Do I have to? I
So,
don't know if I like this example, brother.
so
Go ahead.
here's the thing. I want you to imagine if you knew what to do with this assignment. It's what effect has Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech have in the American Civil Rights Movement? All right. Do you know exactly right now how to go write that paper?
Probably not. No.
Okay. Well,
Maybe
what
I do.
effect?
Yeah. I mean, I could probably come up with something because I'm familiar with it. Is that where we're going?
Yeah. Well, no. You think about it and then you go research it and you write it up.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. You don't need the teacher hand holding you through the process.
Right.
The dyslexic is just blank because it's like grabbing fog. There's nothing to latch onto. So we have to do a specific to general, not big picture down, specific point, then go out. So we ask what
Oh,
personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech. We find out what that answer is. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question, which gives us an answer. We have that anchor point, and then that forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output.
okay. I now I actually understand exactly what you're saying. Okay, so you can't just put some question out there that doesn't have an answer. You put a
Correct.
question out there that has a specific answer where the brain goes specifically to that answer, and then it's like on a path to get where it has
Yes.
to be. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't realize that either.
It's like when you're looking at building a house, you don't start off with this, here's this general blueprint, and then go down from it's like we're starting off with this stone and then we're
Right.
moving outwards from there.
Yeah.
And this is the exact opposite of how our schools are taught.
Hmm.
And lastly, it's word analysis followed by articulation.
Okay.
Okay. And here's something for parents that this is literally in the book. The biggest issue we have with teaching with these dyslexic kids is the inability to get them to write proper sentences. They're writing randomly placed misspelled words. Parents don't know what to do. Teachers don't know what to do. The specialists have no clue what to do, unless if you're rich. What
Oh,
you do then, if it's fourth grade and above, you go to a school like the Windward School in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. So I want you to think about this. Imagine your son was in fourth grade, fifth grade, coming home crying from school every day. And they just, I can't take it anymore. And nobody knows what to do. They're writing randomly placed misspelled words. Then the Windward School comes to you and says, we've been doing this for decade after decade after decade. We have a 98% success rate. You give us your kid, and for 4 to 5 years, we will work with him. We will send him back to his current school as educated as any of the finest private schools on the planet. We're $75,000 a year just in tuition.
that's like when the other shoe's going to drop. There it is.
Yeah, it's like, why is it that? And the teachers get paid horrible compared to public school teachers because the student to teacher ratio isn't 20 or 30 to 1, it's 4 or 5 to 1. Okay. So unless if you have a $500,000, because remember that's just tuition, not living cost. Unless you have $500,000 sitting in the bank or don't want to sell your house, here's how you can do it tonight. And an extended version of this is in the book. Okay.
Wow.
So remember
Okay.
what we're doing. We're going to use modern brain science, which, by the way, this came out 23 years ago. This is my field. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Let's just look at the blatantly obvious. What we're about to show you is the front part of the brain is 2.5 times overactive. I'm
Gotcha.
going to use that. It's called word analysis followed by articulation.
Okay.
Now, do you know any dyslexic elementary school kids well, any point of your life, or not really?
Not really. No, nobody talked
Okay.
about it back when I was, in school.
Okay. So, well, they talked about it. You may think it's like, oh, it just hasn't been around. The first school to deal with this opened 100 years ago. It's called the Gowl School.
Oh my
Literally,
gosh.
they've been doing this since before your grandparents were around. Okay, I mean
Hmm.
seriously. So here's how I'm going to give you my standard example. It's a fifth grade dyslexic girl named Sarah. Her favorite thing in the world is swimming. She loves jumping into the pool. She's on the swim team, gets to the pool every chance she can get. I'm going to show you how to solve this insurmountable problem in the next 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready. All
because,
right.
because we're using modern science. We're using the part of the head that's 2.5 times overactive. So remember, it's word analysis followed by articulation.
Right
So the
on.
first thing we're going to do is we're going to have you open up a laptop computer. All right.
Okay.
And why a laptop? Because you need a real keyboard or this doesn't work. Not an iPad, not an iPhone, and you're certainly not handwriting.
Okay.
You're going to type out hero plus sign. What are we talking about? And Sarah's going to copy it. I can hear parents scream now, but we can't copy. It's not allowed. Professor James, remember, we're using the top science here. Professor James Collins, Strategies for Struggling Writers, Default Writing Strategy of Copying. It's okay. So Sarah copies that out. Then we're going to swap out hero for Sarah. So we got Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? Then we're going to swap out what are we talking about for a list of 10. There's a list of 10 things that Sarah really, really likes and 10 things she really, really dislikes. At the top of that list of likes is swimming. So we got Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for swimming. So we got Sarah plus sign swimming.
Hmm.
Okay, see how we got there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm going to try to fool you with two of the simplest questions you will ever be asked. If you follow what I say exactly, this works. If it
Okay.
doesn't, you're going to get really confused and then have an epiphany on what dyslexia really is. Do
All
you
right.
think I can fool you?
I bet you can.
Okay. Remember, these are the simplest questions you will ever be asked. So we got Sarah plus sign swimming. We have to swap out the plus sign for a word. Here's my question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
She she like oh, she likes swimming?
Yes, but that's not what I asked.
Yes, she likes swimming.
Okay, here's my question again. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Yes.
No, I need an answer. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming? Do I have you thoroughly confused?
Yes, congratulations. You confused me because now I don't know what you're asking me.
Okay. Well, my question is we had Sarah plus sign swimming.
Right?
We got to swap out the plus sign for a word. Here's my question. Does she like or dislike swimming?
She likes swimming.
Yes, but that's not what I asked. Are you ready for
This
your epiphany?
Yes, and please, I'm sure the listeners are. They're like, okay, listen, Russell, this guy's an idiot. Go on with it.
Okay. No, you're not in it. What you're doing is you just did what almost every educated person does. I
Okay.
asked if Sarah like or dislike swimming. And as a very educated person and author, you automatically added the S to make it a proper sentence. Sarah's dyslexic. She doesn't know how to add the S.
I did do that. Okay.
Right. So everybody knows what's going on. You have this massive back part of the brain going on.
Huh.
This is natural for you. Sarah's got next to nothing. It's so what we have to do is we have to take this from the back part of the brain where nothing works, and we got to move it to the front part of the brain.
Okay.
Okay. And how you do that, according to Yale, is word analysis followed by articulation.
Hmm.
So let's use word analysis. So what we do is we ask Sarah, read what you wrote out loud. Sarah, like swimming, because that's what I asked her. And we're going to say, Sarah, does that sound generally correct? And she's going to say, no. And I'm going to say, Sarah, fix it. Sarah likes swimming. We practice that for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. Do you see how that's a very simple form of word analysis?
Yes, and it's specific, like what you were talking about a
Yes.
minute ago with the Martin Luther King scenario.
Yes.
It's a
Very specific.
specific answer.
Very
Interesting.
specific.
Yeah.
Yes. So then now we have to use articulations. Then we'll go because reason one. Give me a simple reason of why a 10-year-old girl would like swimming.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's what everybody says. Sarah likes swimming because it's fun.
Yeah.
Now, do you see how we have a whole mess of misspelled words?
Like swimming. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Everybody thinks this is so hard to fix. It's not. The first thing we do is we tell Sarah, don't worry about spelling, read it out loud. Does it sound generally correct? If not, fix it. And then she does. Why? Because teachers have a real problem with massive, horrific grammar mistakes. They're not trained to deal with that. If it sounds generally correct, we got rid of all the nasty stuff. We got rid of probably a whole bunch of the medium stuff and a few of the little stuff. Teachers are exceptional at dealing with the little stuff, and with effort and with determination, they can deal with the medium stuff over time, but they can't deal with the crazy stuff. We fixed that. Now it's workable for the gen ed teacher to start doing their job, as they say, with difficulty, but they can start doing their job. Now we got the spelling problem. People think this is so hard. It's not. What you do is you tell Sarah to put a period down. Now, anytime she types it out and there's a mistake, she's got to retype the entire sentence. And she's going to say, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm not going to make that mistake. And she keeps making that mistake
Hmm.
for 3 to 13 times, typically. As she keeps retyping the sentence, she focuses harder and harder and harder until it eventually she gets it correct. And that deep concentration is where this magic happens in the front part of her brain. We do that for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. For reason one, 10 likes, 10 dislikes. Reason one, reason two, likes and dislikes, 10 each. Reason one, reason two, and reason three, 10 likes, 10 dislikes. What you've done now is you've taken her from writing randomly placed misspelled words to writing decent grammar, correct spelling, three reasoned sentences. And
Wow.
this is parents doing this at home.
The book, Writing to Read, then, is that these actionable steps? Is it designed to
Yes,
help parents? Yeah, tell me about it.
that's right in the book. And and then what we do is we show them how to write basic body paragraphs. Because what I found is when we were talking to teachers, I said, what is your minimum need for what changes do we need to make this minimally workable for you? And I'm talking fifth grade and above, or maybe fourth grade and above. And what they said was the basic 5 paragraph essay. I said, well, if I can give to you a student who's writing basic, and I mean the most basic 5 paragraph essays. I'm sorry, 3 body paragraphs. They're at a C to B minus level.
Okay.
Okay. They're at a C to B minus level. Can you do the thesis and the conclusion paragraphs? They said yes. I said, there's your minimum viable writing. Because without that, they literally don't know what to do. With that, we could do our jobs, the gen ed teachers, with difficulty, but we can start doing our jobs. That's what's in the book. So, what's in the book is we have 2 examples. One of them is for me working with Reed, and then my co-author is Evelyn Whitebay, who's a master dyslexic teacher. What she did privately, with under a court appointed. She went in and dealt with. She was a court appointed solution provider. So with me, I met Kimberly. She was a homeschooling mom. This is the example that was in the book, so you can see how successful this is following this model. We met on December 27th of 2024, and she said I could use her as an example. A couple weeks before I spoke to her, she had spent $700 and had the state of Ohio test her kids. Um, and the results were interesting. But just a little bit more background about Kimberly. She's a very religious homeschooling mom. She has some college. She successfully taught Reed's four brothers and sisters to read properly using standard methods, not just properly, exceedingly well. Well, with Reed, she felt a lot of shame and embarrassment and guilt and concern because she failed miserably with him.
Hmm.
And here's the hard numbers. Reed was in fifth grade, 10 years old. He's dyslexic. Reading at the 11th grade, I'm sorry, reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the fourth percentile. All right. So
Wow.
I worked
Okay.
with Kimberly for a half an hour a week for the rest of the school year. She worked with him an average of an hour and a half a week, 3 half-hour sessions. The virtually all parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. So you can figure out how long this would take based on that.
Okay.
At the end of the school year, he was retested and he had an increase, but I'm not telling you that because over the summertime, Reed's friends came to him and said, "We want you in public school with us for social reasons, to be with us socially, in class, at lunch, everywhere." So he joined the public school in the first half of August of 2025. Call it 8.5 months later. Now we have, and he was retested. Now we have hard data from inside a public school, mom's miles away, much better data. Well, Reed had an increase. But if he had the same data as January, he would have been placed in special ed, away from his friends. Unhappy kid.
Yeah.
His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing went from the fourth percentile to the 65th.
Wow.
His grammar went to the 97th percentile.
My goodness.
Now, what happened? It's now February of 2026. And I asked his mom, how is he doing? She said he's mainly getting A's and B's. They had a family tragedy, which is affecting him. So he's been late in turning in his English homework. So he's at a C plus in English. Once it's turned in, she said it'll be a B minus to a B. She's not pressuring him, but he's in gen ed classes. He's doing generally pretty well. And Kimberly did what every mom dreamed of. She solved this in less than 9 months. That's how powerful. That's her. The book is about her in large part, her hopes, her dreams, her aspirations, her failures.
That's amazing. That's
Well,
amazing. Whew. I mean,
that's the start. Well, that's the starting point. What Evelyn did, now that's amazing. Evelyn White, New York State had this crazy idea that they wanted to redo their entire elementary school system. And here's the genesis of that. In case people haven't realized, New York State's kind of a liberal state. All right.
mhm.
The legislature that started this, he's a very pragmatic, very liberal guy who wants to see us stop wasting public money and get the best value out of it. All right. He's New York State Senator. Make sure I get his name right. New York State Senator. I just can't come up with his name right now. He's the chair of our Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
Um, Literally, he's a Rhodes Scholar, and he's a Harvard Law School grad. Um, his daughter Sylvia, he found out when she was fourth grade, was dyslexic.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
and he said he was told, well, if you came to us in kindergarten, this is cheap. We can just get this fixed. You literally go to Yale and say, how do you test for dyslexia? It's like $50 a kid. Teachers can do it. They find out if they're dyslexic. Then they have all these research-based programs. Follow that. The kid will be reading and writing at the end of third grade or close to it. That's important because K through 3, we read to learn. Fourth and above, we read. I'm sorry. K through 3, we learn to read. Fourth and
Yeah.
above, we read to learn.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. The senator's name is Senator Hoylman Segal.
Okay.
Okay, he's just a incredibly nice, incredibly bright guy. So he said, "Wait a second, why wasn't my daughter tested for this in kindergarten?" And now he's like, she's in fourth grade. So now the only solution is those $75,000 a year private schools that I was
Yep.
telling you about. His family can afford that. So that's where she went. He said, and this is all public information, I'm not saying anything private. He spent $8,000 on her neuropsychological evaluation to find out what the problem is. That's top end New York City prices. What has resulted because of this? New York State now requires, if the kid probably has dyslexia, I say get a pediatrician's note to send to the insurance companies. They now got to pay up to $5,000 for a neuropsych. Anything beyond that is yes. Anything beyond that is the parent's responsibility. Outside of Manhattan, it's not a problem. So that's now we know what the problem is.
Right.
Now, what he wants to do is he said, we're going to do a dyslexia task force and we're going to figure out how to solve this for everybody. So they got 49 of the best people on dyslexia in the state. There were two or three teachers. Evelyn Whitebay was one of them. The state head of the senior people of the state education department pretty much forced her onto the task force because when she was teaching, in New York State, typically about 50% pass the English language arts test in elementary school. She dyslexics around 10, give or take a couple of points. Her dyslexics were scoring higher than the district's gen ed average. She's that good. So they did this. They spent a year. They came up with a report on how to fix it. Now, New York State, we are the highest tax state in the country. Sorry, California. We spend more per kid than anybody else. And we found out we can't afford the implementation. It's too costly. So I met Evelyn at two of these presentations for public comments. And we decided to work together. This is why I'm spending so much time on this. Evelyn was a court appointed solutions provider for a dyslexic kid. In less time than me working with Reed, her kid didn't go up a couple of grade levels. Her kid jumped up over 6 grade levels.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a master teacher. That story's in the book. Okay.
I love it. I
So
love it. All right. Now, how many other stories are in the book like that? I mean, is that kind of
it's just those two.
and then a lot of action steps in terms of how to put this into place?
Yeah, exactly. So the purpose of the book is to give you an overview of the process and help you get started. So the whole point of this book is, listen, Kimberly did this. She's a homeschooling mom with some college. Evelyn's one of the top dyslexic teachers anywhere in the country. And you can see the difference in how rapid it was. But the thing is, using these materials, we solved things.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what we want parents to know. Read the book, go over it, apply the steps. And if you want additional assistance, what we're doing is there's this phenomenal learning platform called School, SKOOL.com.
Right.
And it's kind of like a traditional learning platform with a Facebook social media thing, but with no ads or any of that other stuff connected, integrated. And we're putting on two types of solutions for parents who want some additional help because we take students through this and just, where we end. There's a student that I work with called Grayson. He's a 10-year-old kid. He's not dyslexic in the least. He's the son of a fellow podcaster. He's in the 99th percentile in math and science. Grayson wants to work for NASA with a PhD to terraform Mars. So remember that craft of research that I was talking about, context, problem statement, solution?
Yeah.
I've already, Grayson is flying through our writing. We're going to take his writing up to the high school level. And then we're going to show him for his problem statement, his solution. I found a journal that actually is right on point. They accept contributions from junior researchers, which for them are PhD candidates. Remember, Grayson's 10. So we're going to show him, I already spotted what needs to get done. We're going to show him how to write a peer-reviewed journal article, and we're going to work with him to submit it for publication. It will be rejected. And that laundry list of things that need to get cleaned up, that's what he needs to spend the next bunch of years on. We're going to introduce him to a senior college professor in that area. He's going to go in probably at 14 and say, I want to publish this journal article. Here's what needs to get corrected. Can you work on this with me? And see the guy's jaw drop. You want to see something about helping him get into college. We get him to publish in college. That will get him in almost certainly into the PhD program he wants. He publishes a few more times. He will be an excellent candidate for NASA. So we're taking it all the way through that. So what we do is on school, we're putting up two levels of platforms. One is we found that the affordability of dyslexia education is impossible. It's just it's not within reach of families. And the other thing that I found out is you can't have a static program. So we actually have to have a qualified instructor walk you through. So that's going to be, for most families, it's going to be Angela. She's a homeschooling mom who was a certified elementary school teacher in Texas with a decade of experience, taught reading, taught all sorts of things. She taught her son August how to go through this. So she's going to be there for 60 to 90 minutes each week answering questions.
Nice.
And we looked at the price tag of my competition. Something like that is 500 to 1,000 a month. We dropped it to $147 a month.
Nice.
So families
Nice.
can afford it. That's going
Yeah.
to be extension. You can find out about that in the book. The second option is going to be with Evelyn White Bay, and she's again just extraordinarily successful. So we're pricing that at $497 for those who want the pinnacle of expertise to show them how to do the work. And yes, we are showing parents how to teach their kids, and most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. And we're here for as long as you want, from basic sentences all the way up to having your kids submit something to be published, which is generally for grad school. But for the top gen ed kids, as Gratian is demonstrating, we can start working on that as young as 10.
I love this. I mean, I've had the opportunity of talking to you, along the way and kind of watching your progress with what you are building here. And with the book, I mean, it really feels, it looks like from the outside, like all this is just coming together for you.
Yeah, it finally is, and a big part of what that is allowing me to finally do this is the artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
And just so people know my quick background with that, when OpenAI came out with their $200 a month pro plan in December of 2024, I bought it that day. Okay. And then I stopped using it last December because I could get 5.2 thinking to think for 6 to 10 minutes. So I didn't need to spend 200. I moved it over to Anthropic's Claude Opus 4. Now it's 4.6. And just the advancements of where that is. I'm working in what I'd like to call October 2025 level, because when 4.6 came, Opus 4.5 came out in November, the agents started doing the work. Now in 4.6, those agents can run for, hours, days, weeks, but there's four levels to program these things in a prompt and not one. And I'm still drastically just trying to get that generally figured out. I have, but I don't like the output, so I'm doing the October stuff. So another huge part of what I do to teach is I have a client that I met, son of a podcaster. He's a senior in high school. I'm sorry, senior in college, 3.22 GPA in business. He's properly educated, but his dad said he's just not ready for the workforce. So I'm showing him through custom Harvard created case studies on what he wants to do, but I'm also showing him how to do this AI stuff, because if you don't know that, you're not going to be hireable, because literally it makes you 5, sometimes 10x more productive. Okay, so if you know the craft of research, you just sit down with the AI, you figure out what's the context, what's the problem statement, what's the solution. You can just go back and forth and figure it out. My students who have went through that are doing very well. Even the ones that hate AI, when they get hired, within weeks they're teaching their peers. Okay, that's how
Yeah,
powerful this is. So what we're doing not only shows reading and writing, it's showing them that mental toughness, that mental processing skills to get everybody on the same page, find something that actually needs to be worked on, they can actually do, and then coming up with an innovative solution. That is the basis of the craft of research. Been that way for 30 years. We're showing them how to do that and then how to apply that to artificial intelligence so they can actually get employed.
that's great. That's great. It never stops. It's there's use upon use upon use once people put this stuff into practice.
Oh, it's accelerating at what worked in January is not working in February. It's just literally insane. And I spend a half an hour to an hour a day, 6, 7 days a week just to stay on top of this.
Yeah.
And what's happening though is those that are, I'll give you an example. There was a sales position at a major company. They used to expect 3 to 500,000 in sales per employee, and they pay them about 80, maybe 90,000. Now they expect $3 to 5 million in sales per employee, and they're paying them 300,000. So if you know the craft of research and you can
Yeah.
apply it, you can do very well with AI, and then you're going to become much more valuable. If you can't, they're not going to hire you to work the way we did pre-AI. They're just not.
Yeah.
And that's the mess we're running into.
Yeah. Well, great advice on all fronts here, man. So, as always, am completely enthralled with your work. I love it, and I love the way you break it down into these examples so that everybody who's listening can understand what the program really is about. And anybody who has who themselves is dyslexic or who has a child that way, I know that they're paying really close attention to what it is you're saying here. The book is Writing to Read, a proven dyslexia method for turning struggling writers into confident readers at home or in the classroom. Russell, let me ask you one last question. This process of getting the book together, I know has been a lot of fun for you. What is one piece of advice you can give to authors, as we kind of bring this thing to a close, who are not where you are and have not gotten their book put together and edited and redone and AI'd and published? What's one good piece of advice you can give them so that maybe they can get there someday?
Well, here's how I would actually, because this is exactly what I did. I actually wrote it with AI. So it was O3 Pro at the time.
Okay.
And then I went to Fiverr, and I went. They have this thing called Fiverr Choice, which is their top writers, and I picked one that it was a homeschooling mom. So I had her I sent her the draft. She rewrote it completely, which is what I expected. But then she didn't have I don't think the intellectual capacity to go with the really complicated stuff that I was dealing with. So I went to another Fiverr Choice. She's a medical student or a resident or something along those lines. And I had her completely rewrite the book as well. Then I went and I got a co-writer. I got Evelyn Whitebay, and I said, "Here's this." Once I brought on a co-writer, I knew Evelyn was going to take this wherever she wanted to go. And then she rewrote it, and then she had it edited. And I thought we were done. And then I was on a podcast with one of our peers, a teacher who did 2 TEDx speeches and who published several books on her own successfully. She looked at it and said, "Yeah, you're about 55, 60% there. There's a whole lot of little editing you got to do." So I traded teaching her some of my stuff for her doing all this work for me. So that was the fun part. The other thing is for the book cover. I literally created an avatar of about 29,000 words, and I used Opus 4.6 to say get to create directions for um, Google's image creator because it's the best one out there. And it created it. We went back and forth a few times, and then I stuck it on. I gave it to my team, and basically I said this is about 90% there. Okay, so you can use AI to help do things, but when the editor came, I had it run through Opus 4.6, caught a whole bunch of stupid. All right. But you do need, this is just for everybody out there, you're going to spend thousands of dollars on your editor. It's not one pass. If you're going to go to Fiverr, get somebody who's really good and just realize you're going to be paying the money.
Wow.
All
There you
right.
go. All right.
Just know that's going to happen. But that's how I found that I got it to work for me.
Got it. I appreciate the advice. And, as always, extremely honest and upfront and transparent, just like you, brother. So I appreciate that very, very much. All right. Russell, looking forward to checking this book out when it comes out. And I mean, every time you come on here, you just impart even more knowledge on me. I hear different parts of your story. I learn something every time you come on. And, I have more podcasts. I'm going to have to get you on some of these other ones too, brother, because we're not done. Our story is not done. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you, your story, and everything you have to share. And I know we'll be talking again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, this has been another absolutely wonderful episode of the Right Path podcast, where truth still matters and words still have power. This is a place for authors who know that every page is a step forward towards finding the right path. Until next time.